This is one of the most difficult challenges to belief in God.
Oh, there's a big surprise! That's an incredible... I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise!
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. Today we're going to be hearing from Red Pin Logic and its host Tim Barnett on the eternal thorn in the side of Abrahamic theology, the problem of evil. Tim's going to be trying to rhetorically sidestep this problem in a variety of different ways to try to give believers who are struggling with the idea of an all-loving God in the face of a world of suffering assurances that they've backed the right cosmic pony. Now, let's start off by properly framing the problem of evil, because Tim isn't going to be doing that in his video. But the idea of the problem of evil has been explained in many ways, maybe none better than ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, who founded Epicureanism, a highly influential school of philosophy. His challenge to the idea of God was dubbed the Epicurean trilemma. It states, is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he's not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both willing and able? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? Basically, the idea is that if you have a God that is all-powerful and all-good, there is no valid rationalization for that God creating a world of evil and suffering. And any refutation you could attempt to make to that would fail either the omnipotent or omnibenevolent supposed aspects of the God Christians believe in. It's long been a challenge that apologists have failed to adequately answer to the satisfaction of those making the problem of evil argument. But Tim here has come up with 5 different responses to the problem of evil. So let's hear him out and see if any of his refutations can pass the sniff test. But before we get to that, if you end up liking what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe, click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out. Check out my social media, including my Patreon and Twitter, all linked in the description. And of course, like this video, pop in a comment, all that goes a long way towards pleasing the YouTube algorithm, whose only problem with evil is the popularity of Christian nationalism videos, Andrew Tate shorts, and Nickelback music videos on its platform. May it keep my channel motoring along. Now on to today's video.
If God is all good and all powerful, then why is there evil and suffering in the world? Now, this isn't just an academic challenge. It's deeply personal, especially for those of us who have experienced evil and suffering. Now, I don't have any illusions that I'm going to answer the problem of evil in this short video. However, I want to highlight some of the ways that Christians have responded.
So, you have no illusions that you're going to answer the problem of evil in this video. Now here's how you're going to answer the problems of evil in this video. I mean, the video itself is titled 5 Reasons Why God Allows Evil. So these are going to be your attempts at answering the problem of evil. Sure, you may not fully be able to address all the intricacies and nuances or get into the full philosophical debate of the problem of evil in a short little video, but this is going to be what you feel are valid refutations to the challenge, even if not fully fleshed out ones. You may just be giving us the Cliff Notes versions of these reasons for God allowing evil, but you do think that these shortened explanations hold up to scrutiny. Well, we're certainly going to be putting them to the test, I can tell you that, Tim.
These are typically called theodicies. They are reasons why God might allow bad stuff to happen. For example, we might talk about the fall.
You know, there's summer and spring and winter, but fall is definitely the best season.
Oh, of course, that wasn't what you meant. Please, Tim, tell us more about the fall.
The world isn't the way God originally made it. Human beings were placed into the Garden of Eden, and it was good. But they disobeyed. They brought sin into the world, and that act of sin has consequences. The Apostle Paul says that the whole creation has been groaning. So there's the fall.
Oy, there is so much to unpack with this one. Where to begin? Okay, for starters, let's address the notion of Adam and Eve bringing sin into the world. No, they didn't. I mean, there is the whole thing about Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden being a myth and Homo sapiens actually arriving through evolution, but let's set that aside and go with the biblical creation story for now. Adam and Eve were created without any concept of good and evil. They were totally and necessarily innocent. This is by God's design. And his command was not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So even by the creation story, Adam and Eve did not know good from evil. They didn't know right from wrong. They were fundamentally incapable of sinning because they couldn't even comprehend what evil was. So when God told them, don't eat that,
and I go, okay.
But then a serpent came along and told them, hey, you should eat that. And they didn't know that they shouldn't do that because they didn't know it was wrong to disobey what God had said. Because they couldn't know it was wrong to disobey. Because they had no concept of good and evil. So when the serpent told them, hey, you should eat that,
and I go, okay.
And it was only after they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil did they know that it was wrong to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So you can't say that they committed a sin when they didn't even know that what they were doing was wrong. I mean, we don't blame babies if they throw a toy and it hits someone in the eye. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what the ramifications of their actions would be. They didn't know it was wrong to throw something at someone because it might hurt them, and that it was wrong to hurt someone. What if when you die and you stand before your supposed God, Tim, if he says to you that you were wrong for shaving your head? What's your defense going to be? I bet it would be something like, but I didn't know it was wrong to shave my head. Well, yeah, that'd be a pretty good defense, I would say. Not knowing something is a sin is a pretty good defense for it. Much like how Adam and Eve didn't know it was a sin to eat from the tree. Hence, they can't be held to blame for it. So that's the first problem with the fall as an argument. Secondly is the idea that all this evil and wickedness and all the suffering came into the world and befell all the things in the world as a result of Adam and Eve disobeying. That means that everything and everyone, all animals, all plants, everything on the earth and in the universe at large that would ever come to exist must suffer and undergo pain and evil as a result not of anything they did, but because of what Adam and Eve did. And all of Adam and Eve's descendants to come would suffer, not because of anything they did, but because of what Adam and Eve did, long, long before they were even born. Not only is this not fair, it directly contradicts what it says in the Bible. In Ezekiel 18:20 it says, "The soul that sinneth, it shall die. The son shall not bear the iniquity of the father, neither shall the father bear the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon him, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him." The whole idea is that sin is supposed to affect the sinner, no one else. So saying that all the pain, suffering, and evil that we have to endure in the world is because of one act of two people thousands of years ago that had nothing to do with any of us, well, that's just not the way your own religion claims that it works. And then thirdly, the idea that suffering came into the world as a result of Adam and Eve's actions does not satisfy the Epicurean trilemma. God is supposed to be all-powerful. Did God have the ability to prevent the world from becoming a suffering-laden cesspool after Adam and Eve ate from the tree? If not, then he isn't all-powerful. Did he have the power to prevent the world from becoming a suffering-laden cesspool but wasn't willing? Then he's malevolent. Seriously, if he had wanted to, couldn't he have just said, it's okay. You two crazy kids didn't know what you were doing. Tell you what, we'll just take a mulligan on this one. I'll hit the reset button and we'll all go back to square one. And this time, I'll move that pesky tree out of your reach, seeing as you won't even have the ability to know that you shouldn't eat from it. I mean, would that have been so hard for your supposed all-powerful God?
Next, some Christians appeal to human free will as another reason why God might allow evil and suffering in the world. The free will theodicy posits that evil and suffering exist as a consequence of humans having the freedom to make choices, which includes the possibility of choosing to do evil. As a matter of fact, the Bible's full of people exercising their free will in disobedience of God, and suffering results.
You're missing the point.
A tree falls in the forest due to termite infestation and wood rot. It lands on a squirrel's tail. The squirrel is trapped, can't get free. It's in enormous pain, but it's not life-threatening pain. It suffers immensely for days, unable to free itself, until it eventually dies of dehydration. That is, if some predator doesn't come along first and tear it apart as a quick and easy meal, but even that would be welcomed as the sweet release of death. Now, what part of this situation that I just described is the result of human free will? What actions chosen by dirty, sinful humans led to this state of affairs for the poor little squirrel? What human free will choices lead to the existence of cancer, or any other illness, injury, or malady? What human free will choice causes hurricanes and floods and tsunamis and tornadoes and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and sandstorms and mudslides and wildfires? What human free will choice led many animals to decide to start eating other animals and then grow into completely predatory species? What percentage of the suffering that occurs to any living thing on this planet would you say is a direct cause of human free will choice? Because if it's more than, say, 10%, I'd be shocked. The idea that human free will is a sufficient account for the existence of suffering misses the point entirely. It's a short-sighted, human-centric response that ignores the vast majority of things that we would consider evil in this world and places humanity on some kind of major pedestal of importance that we just don't belong on. Also, the idea of human choice free will doesn't satisfy the Epicurean trilemma. Does God have the ability to make humans in such a way that we'll still have free will, but lack the ability to choose to do evil? I mean, that wouldn't truly affect free will, simply making certain choices impossible. I mean, I can't choose to fly like Superman, but that doesn't affect my free will, does it? Not having the option to choose something doesn't mean that you don't have free will. So, if God is truly all-powerful, couldn't he have given humans free will but still made them unable to choose to do evil? And if he can't, then he's not all-powerful. Does he have the ability to do that but is not willing? Then he's malevolent, because surely it would be more benevolent to give humans free will and prevent suffering and evil. Also, in the Christian paradigm, free will is an impossibility in the first place. An all-knowing God with perfect knowledge of the future and every action that humans will ever do with perfect accuracy, meaning God cannot be wrong about what you will do, well, this means that your choices are already set in stone. They're unchangeable, meaning that you don't actually have the capability of choosing. You only have the illusion of choice, the illusion of free will. So couldn't God just set all of people's choices to choose good, and then everyone does good things and thinks that they're making the choice themselves, when in fact, all of those choices have been predetermined by God? I mean, that's what's going on anyway, if you believe in Christianity. God is already predetermining our choices. I mean, everything's in accordance with God's plan, isn't it? We only think that we're choosing things for ourselves. So God should just set all of those non-free will choices as good things. The fact that he sets them as sometimes bad things means that God himself is not all good. So, yeah.
His whole case is an illusion, a magic trick. It has to be an illusion, because you're innocent.
Another reason might be for a greater good. Greater good theodicies posit that despite the presence of evil and suffering, there exists a greater good or purpose that justifies or outweighs the existence of such evil and suffering. One example is found in Genesis 50:20. Joseph endures tremendous evil at the hands of his brothers. But he says to his brothers, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." Of course, Jesus' death on a cross would be another example of a great good coming from a horrendous evil.
Oh, there, that's better. Much better. Oh, good, the curtains are on fire.
It's good that you made that awful thing.
So, for starters, this idea of there being a greater good behind all suffering is just wishful thinking. Sure, while some good can be seen coming out of suffering, say for instance, getting dental work done or surgery, without proper anesthesia it would hurt like a son of a bitch, but it's to repair problems and prevent further pain and suffering in the future. But it's just pie-in-the-sky wishful thinking that all suffering has some greater benefit, that every child born with Tay-Sachs disease, which will result in them suffering seizures, blindness, deafness, and several other symptoms before dying painfully within a couple of years, has some greater benefit to it? Or every natural disaster that kills countless people and then displaces several more has some larger purpose to it? Even if you wanted to try to make an argument that overcoming these sorts of problems will make us better people in the long run, it still doesn't track. The idea that give us lots of terrible diseases so we'll learn how to cure them. Give us lots of natural disasters so we learn to come together and help one another. It's the whole, the good Lord gave us mountains so we would learn how to climb mentality. But if the world didn't have any mountains, we wouldn't need to learn how to climb, now would we? The idea that we suffer because we need to be made better to better deal with suffering is a circular argument. We suffer so that we can get stronger, so that we can better deal with it when we suffer. And round we go. But if we didn't suffer to begin with, we wouldn't need to get stronger so that we could better deal with suffering, now would we? Furthermore, you cite some Bible examples of suffering that had an overall better outcome, like Jesus' death on the cross. But the Bible also provides examples of suffering that had nothing any sane person could justify as a better outcome. Lest we forget the story of Job, who got inflicted with immense suffering just so God could win a bet. Destroyed his home, his land, his livestock, killed his family, ravaged Job's body with illnesses, all to prove that Job would still be faithful to him. And if you would respond to that by saying, yeah, but after Job remained faithful, God gave him a new home and a new family, so it all worked out. Well, not for Job's first family, now did it? Where's their greater good? Their life cut short so God could satisfy his gambling habit? Also, this doesn't satisfy the Epicurean trilemma. Does God have the ability to make the supposed better good that will come through the suffering without having all that suffering? If no, then he isn't all-powerful. Does God have the ability to make that supposed better good without the suffering, but is unwilling? Then he's malevolent.
Another reason why God might permit evil and suffering is called the soul-making theodicy. It's argued that some evil and suffering is necessary for the development of human souls.
There is no way you're going to have enough coffee to fill that glass and still get some into that last glass. Tim needs a barista. Can we get a barista over here, stat?
In this view, this world serves as a veil of soul-making, where struggles and trials faced by individuals contribute to the formation of their characters. This world gets us ready to spend eternity with God.
Thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another?
What about all the babies who die long before that happens? I mean, you Christians are always banging on about abortion being murder. Well, if souls don't develop until after a certain amount of life is lived and suffering is endured, then what's your problem with abortion? Seems in this view of things, terminating a fetus wouldn't matter because it's not like the fetus has a soul yet. But then, what would you say to parents who lose their children very young? Like going back to those aforementioned Tay-Sachs babies. If they die within just months or even weeks of being born, is that enough time to develop a soul? I mean, what is the magic suffering time frame in order to grow a soul? And if it's just a few weeks or maybe months, and after that a soul develops, then what's the rationalization for still suffering beyond that point? Once you have a soul, why keep suffering after that? And if your response to that is that more suffering throughout life makes you a better person, in a real whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger type of argument, that's just not how things work. People who have suffered significant trauma are more likely to perpetuate trauma in the future. It can be difficult for people who've experienced trauma to distinguish between safe and dangerous situations, which increases their likelihood of poor decision-making and antisocial behaviors, which can be linked to criminality. In one study, people who had committed criminal offenses reported nearly 4 times as much adverse events in childhood than an average adult male. Moreover, with each additional ACE, which are adverse childhood experiences, that youth report, the risk of violence perpetration increased by 35 to 144%. Suffering very often makes us worse people, not better. Also, this doesn't satisfy the Epicurean trilemma. Does God have the ability to give human souls without the need of suffering to develop it? If not, then he isn't all-powerful. Does he have the ability to give humans fully developed souls without the need of suffering, but is unwilling to do so? Then he's malevolent. Because surely a benevolent God would want people to not have to suffer in order to develop a soul.
Finally, some argue that God allows evil and suffering because he wants to reveal certain things about himself that otherwise we wouldn't know.
See, you totally refilled that container with more coffee. But then why not just pour the extra coffee directly into the 5th glass? Why the container is the middleman? Damn it, Tim, your Starbucks application has been denied.
For example, it's in a world with sin that God demonstrates his grace, his mercy, his forgiveness, his justice, and even his enemy love.
So then, ego. That's the last reason that you have for us? Ego? God wants to show what an amazing being he is, and he just can't do that without some real horrendous suffering to deal with. He wants to demonstrate his grace, mercy, forgiveness, and justice, but he just can't do that unless the world is a broken cesspool of misery. So, better for the world to be that broken cesspool than for him to just keep his I'm so special and awesome qualities to himself? Is that what we're going with? That's like saying that Batman hires thugs to rob people at night so he can show up, beat up the thugs, and show what a hero he is. You don't get brownie points for being the cause of the problem that you then fix. If there is no crime, then you don't need to show off your justice. If there is no sin, then you don't need to offer mercy. If there's no trespasses, then you don't need to offer forgiveness. And what was that other one you said?
It's in a world with sin that God demonstrates his grace.
Grace, she passed away 30 years ago.
Also, this doesn't satisfy the Epicurean trilemma. Does God have the ability to express those qualities to humanity without suffering as a prerequisite? If not, then he's not all-powerful. If he has the ability to express those qualities to humanity without suffering, but is unwilling, then he's malevolent. Because surely it's more important to prevent suffering than showing off to the masses in order to assuage your own ego, right?
So we've looked at some of the reasons why God might allow evil and suffering, but I want you to notice something. There's still some liquid left over.
Yeah, 'cause you refilled the jar, Tim. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's coffee.
That's because we don't have all of God's reasons figured out, and we shouldn't expect to. He's God, we're not. We do our best to understand God's ways, and then we trust him even when we don't understand.
What's that you say, skeptic? None of these reasons are good enough answers to the problem of evil? Well, I'm sure God has all kinds of good reasons that we petty, pathetic humans just can't fathom. Trust him, bro. Just bend the knee and believe that God has plenty of good reasons for making this world just the awful, awful place that it is.
Left a nasty cramp in my leg, so kneeling will be hard for me.
So this last one, I'm afraid I'm going to have to dismiss out of hand. Because, see, I'm an atheist, so I don't even believe that the God that you believe in exists. And I'm certainly not prepared to give the benefit of the doubt to a fictional character. So the whole throwing up your hands and saying, God's got his reasons, I just can't give you any good ones, just rings a bit hollow. Plus, all heretofore unknown godly reasons for the existence of evil don't satisfy the Epicurean trilemma. Does God have the ability to prevent suffering despite all of his unknowable reasons? If no, then he's not all-powerful. Does he have the ability to prevent suffering despite all of his unknowable reasons, but is unwilling to do so? Then he's malevolent. And if he is both willing and able, then whence cometh evil? And if he's neither willing nor able, why call him God? So that was Tim Barnett's attempt at addressing the problem of evil from a Christian apologist perspective. And none of the refutations held water, or coffee as the case may be. In every case, with every reason, they all relied on God seemingly not being powerful enough to prevent evil, or not being willing to prevent evil. Mostly it seemed it was the unwilling side. He was unwilling to forgive Adam and Eve, even though they were just following orders that they couldn't have known they shouldn't be following. He's unwilling to hold individuals to account for their own wrongdoings and instead makes it everyone else's problem. He's unwilling to refrain from making a wager that's dependent upon him making people suffer. He's unwilling to keep his "look at me, aren't I awesome" qualities to himself and just has to show off. Basically, your God sounds like a dick. Good thing there's no compelling reason to believe that he exists, and strong reasons to believe that he doesn't. The problem of evil being a good one, and one that you, Tim, have even come within a country mile of addressing in a satisfactory manner here today. And so that is where we'll end things for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Don't forget to check me out on Twitter and Patreon if you'd like to support my work directly. My Teespring if you want some Plinky merchandise. All that link below in the description. Special shout out to my most recent super thankers here on YouTube, Salvi Mike and Abyss. Until next time, I'm Professor Plink reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.